Okay, so you're back with us for another deep dive. And today, we are going to try to get into the minds of some really incredible volleyball players.
Yeah, the wing hitters.
Yeah, specifically those wing hitters.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are really kind of the stars of the show in a lot of ways.
Mm,
They get those really big, exciting hits that everybody in the crowd is always going crazy for.
absolutely.
So we're going to try to figure out, what makes them tick. What is it that makes these players so successful? What are their mindsets? How do they approach the game strategically?
Right. And to do that, we've collected all sorts of different sources and viewpoints. We've got some quotes from the players themselves. We've got coaches weighing in and even some observations from people who just love the sport.
Yeah, it's a really cool mix. We've got like inspirational quotes and coaching philosophies, and even some interesting thoughts about how the whole team dynamic works, and even how the spectators play a role.
It's all connected.
Yeah, so the big mission here is to kind of pull out the strategic lessons that are hiding within all of these different words and see how a wing hitter's individual choices end up influencing the entire team's game plan.
Yeah, their approach really does ripple out to the whole team.
So where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, I think a great place to start is with this idea of dedication, like really consistent focus and effort. And there's this quote that really captures that: I never prepared to win the Olympic gold. I only prepared to win the next day.
Wow, that's powerful, especially for a wing hitter.
Yeah.
They're always under so much pressure to deliver those big moments.
BR.
Every single rally, every set. It's like a brand new test. It's not even about the championship and the distance. It's about that immediate challenge right in front of them.
Yeah.
So how does a wing hitter actually make that daily focus work?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. We were looking at some of the things that volleyball expert had to say, and they talked about how crucial it is to make every single minute count, even those boring drills.
Yeah, those drills are super important.
So important. And when a wing hitter brings that intensity and focus to every rep, they're essentially getting ready for that next crucial point in a game.
So it's like all those tiny wins add up to the big victories in the end.
Exactly. The Olympic gold medal is the result of all those next days stacked up on top of each other.
I love that. And it reminds me of another quote: practice like it's competition and compete like it's another day on the practice court. So for these wing hitters who are always expected to perform under pressure, how did they manage to stay so consistent?
I think this quote gets right at the heart of how they prepare mentally.
Yeah.
If you're practicing with the same intensity as a game, you're basically making that pressure feel normal.
Right.
So when they step onto the court for a real match, it might be louder and the stakes might be higher, but it doesn't throw them off mentally.
They're used to it.
Exactly. They can just play their game with the same focus they bring to every practice. Every point matters, whether it's a drill or a championship match.
It makes so much sense. But what about when things don't go their way? Wing hitters, they're going up against some incredible blocks and digs. They can't win every point.
Right. And that brings us to this really essential quality of resilience,
Yeah.
being able to bounce back from those tough moments. Here's a quote that really gets at that. We are all going to fall short. We are going to have some bitter losses, very painful defeats and failures. We have to use those to come back even stronger. That's what makes it sweeter when we can overcome those and figure out a way to win. The great teams can do that, and those are the gold medal winning teams.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. I mean, especially for a wing hitter who might get blocked several times in a row,
Absolutely.
they have to be able to just shake it off and come back ready for the next point.
It's that mental toughness that sets them apart. They can't let a single error derail their whole game.
Right. And I think Al Skates put it perfectly when he said, you have to be willing to fail to improve.
Absolutely.
For a wing hitter, it's so important to see those blocks or those missed hits, not as failures, but as opportunities to learn.
Exactly. Each setback gives them information about their opponent, about themselves. It's all valuable data. They can use it to get better.
So instead of letting adversity get them down, they use it to their advantage.
It becomes a stepping stone to improvement, not a roadblock.
I love that. But even the most talented wing hitter is still just one player on a team,
Right.
right?
Right.
So how does that team dynamic play into their success?
This is where it gets really fascinating because it shows how the strength of the entire team can actually make individual players even better. There's this quote we found: we weren't more physical than Russia. We didn't play faster than Brazil, but we out-teamed our opponents.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
It highlights the fact that athleticism isn't always enough. It's that teamwork, that strategic execution that can really overcome any obstacle.
It makes you realize that a wing hitter's ability to score isn't all about their own power.
Right. It's about the whole sequence.
It starts with a good pass, then a perfect set, and maybe even some strategic blocking to create an opening.
Exactly. And Ryan Miller had a really interesting point about this. He talked about how individual players have to work together to become a truly great team.
Yeah, and when that happens, it makes a huge difference for the wing hitter.
It does. When the team is clicking and working together seamlessly, the wing hitter has so many more opportunities to shine.
They can really reach their full potential.
Exactly. And we can't forget about team chemistry. Don Shondell made this really insightful observation that team chemistry is an elusive thing, and he talked about how important it is to get everyone pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, team chemistry can make or break a team. But how does a wing hitter specifically contribute to that positive atmosphere?
Well, for starters, they have to be a good communicator on the court. They need to be encouraging their teammates, offering support even after a mistake, and celebrating those wins together. That builds trust.
That trust is so important.
It is.
Mm.
They need to trust their teammates to set them up for success, and their teammates need to trust them to deliver in those big moments.
And then there's that simple but powerful message from Hubbages. Teamwork makes the dream work.
So true. And in volleyball, where every point involves so much coordination, that couldn't be more accurate.
Even the most amazing spike is often the result of a whole series of efforts from the whole team. It's that chain reaction that makes it all work.
It really is a team effort.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of dedication, focus, and teamwork. But what about the actual skills that a wing hitter needs? How do they develop those?
This is where Ryan Miller offers some really practical advice. He said, for those of you that are just getting started, the biggest tip I can give you is play as much as possible. Play doubles, play pepper, play 6-on-6, whatever. Just play. The best way to develop your skills as a young player is to play.
It sounds so simple, but it makes so much sense.
It does. It's all about getting those reps in a variety of different situations, honing those reflexes, developing that intuitive feel for the ball that you can't always get from just drills.
It's like learning by doing.
Exactly. And volleyball experts shared this anecdote about a player who was completely dedicated to the sport. They were playing almost every single day.
Wow.
Now, obviously, that's a pretty extreme example, but it shows just how much commitment it often takes to become an elite wing hitter.
Yeah, they're putting in the time and effort to master all those different skills that they need.
Exactly.
So having those raw skills is one thing,
Yeah.
but how do they learn to use them effectively in a real game situation?
That's a great question, and I think Matt Anderson's quote really gets to the heart of it. He said, "In my opinion, the teaching of volleyball technique must always be correlated with tactical tasks."
I see what he's saying.
So it's not enough to just be able to hit the ball hard.
Right.
You have to understand when and where to hit it based on what the other team is doing. You have to be able to read the defense, anticipate their moves, and adapt your strategy in real time.
So it's about taking all those technical skills and turning them into tools that you can use strategically.
Exactly. For example, learning to hit a variety of different shots, like a hard cross court or a soft tip over the block, gives a wing hitter more options depending on the situation.
So they're always thinking ahead, planning their attack.
Exactly.
Okay, so they've got the skills and they understand the tactics.
Uh-huh.
What about the mental side of things? You know, the confidence,
Yeah.
the competitive fire that really sets the best players apart.
That's crucial. Me Anderson actually talked about this. He said that when he was younger, he used to channel that feeling of being the underdog into a healthy rage to prove himself.
It's like he's using that competitive spirit to fuel his performance.
Exactly. And I think that kind of self-belief is essential, especially when you're going up against players who might be more experienced or physically imposing.
You have to believe in yourself.
You do. And Anderson also shared an observation about Russian players. He noticed that when they lose a point, they do not think about it, but focus on the next one. I think the same way.
It's about having that short memory.
Exactly. You can't dwell on the mistakes. You have to move on and be ready for the next opportunity.
Don't let one error turn into 2 or 3.
And Billie Jean King had some great advice that goes along with this. She said, be bold. If you are going to make an error, make a doozy, and don't be afraid to hit the ball.
I love that. It's like she's saying, don't be afraid to take risks. Go for it.
Exactly. You can't play it safe as a wing hitter. You have to attack with confidence. And even if you make a mistake, that aggressive mindset can still disrupt the other team's defense.
It keeps them on their toes.
Right. And then there's Michael Jordan, who said, I've always believed that if you put in the work, the results will come. I don't do things half-heartedly, because I know if I do, then I can expect half-hearted results.
It brings us back to that dedication again, but it also adds this idea of expectation.
Right, when you know you've put in the work, you can step onto the court with confidence. You expect to succeed because you trust in your preparation and your abilities.
That makes sense. Now, of course, we can't talk about developing a player, especially a wing hitter, without talking about the coach.
Absolutely. Rita Crockett had a really simple but powerful way of putting it. She said, "My coaches were all good, all pleasant. They were hard, but they made me who I am."
You can really hear the impact that her coaches had on her.
Definitely. And the inspirational volleyball quotes section on Huppages really emphasizes this idea that great coaches can help players unlock their potential and develop that championship mindset.
Yeah, a good coach can make all the difference.
They provide guidance, feedback support. They create an environment where players can thrive.
So crucial.
They often see potential in players that they don't even see in themselves.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so we've covered a lot of serious ground here. But at the end of the day, volleyball is still a game.
It is.
There has to be some fun in there somewhere.
Of course. There's this quote from Hubbages that I think captures that spirit perfectly. It says, "In just a few short seconds, I'm going to show down, throw down, and otherwise knock you down with a barrage of amazing spikes, blocks, and digs, and show you what volleyball is all about. This is my court, you dig."
I can feel the energy in that quote. It's like that passion, that competitive fire are all mixed together.
And then there's that classic volleyball saying, "If you can bang, you can hang."
So true. It's all about that offensive power.
And who could forget? Big hits, little shorts.
A little volleyball
It
here.
is. It lightens things up a bit. And we also found this image that really resonated with us. It had the motto, "Never give up," paired with the phrase, "If you are going to skate on thin ice, you may as well dance."
It's like that perfect blend of resilience and daring that you see in so many great wing hitters.
Exactly. They're willing to take risks to go for those big plays even when things are tough, and they never give up.
So inspiring. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the strategic mindset of the successful volleyball wing hitter, I think we've uncovered some really valuable insights.
We have. We've seen how important it is to be dedicated to put in the work every single day and to be resilient, to be able to bounce back from those setbacks and learn from them.
And we've explored how even the most talented individual player still relies on their team to create those opportunities to succeed.
We talked about how crucial it is to practice, to hone those skills, and to be able to apply those skills strategically within the team's game plan.
And of course, we can't forget about that confident, competitive mindset
Yeah.
that allows wing hitters to perform under pressure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening, whether you're a player, a coach, or just a fan, these principles can apply to so much more than just volleyball.
Absolutely. They're about setting goals, working hard, overcoming challenges, and believing in yourself.
It's about finding that balance between individual excellence and teamwork.
And it's about developing that mental toughness that allows you to face any challenge with confidence and a willingness to take risks.
So much to think about.
It really is food for thought for all of us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.